Hey guys, it's Ted here, and right over here we have my new Rivian R1S Launch Edition fitted into launch green with the 22-inch sport wheels, bright. And like the R1T that I had, we have the yellow calipers along with the yellow finishes and touches. But the real difference here is the launch green paint. So right now it's very overcast, so you actually don't see little sparkles and stuff, but there are sparkles. It almost looks like El Cap granite when it's darker later in the day. And I got rid of the R1T basically because the R1S more or less fits my needs more. I really needed the third row for the dogs and the kids. And overall, it's been really good. There's definitely certain things that are different in the R1T, and I do want to go over the differences. But one of the things that has to be said about this, so end to end with the R1S, 200.8 inches, and that's similar length to a Tesla Model X. But the difference here is this is a box. So the Tesla is kind of like an SUV coupe-ish kind of deal, but this is a box, which allows more storage vertically and obviously a third row that the R1T did not have. And another thing, the R1T was at 217 inches in length and the wheelbase is 135 inches. The reason why I bring that up is the wheelbase on the R1S is 121 inches, so it's a lot shorter wheel to wheel. And the reason why that's important is because it really changes the way that Rivian has to do suspension tuning, because when the wheelbase is longer, it's a more comfortable ride, but when you shorten it, obviously you gotta fix things. And with an EV, the weight distribution is different. So this truck is about 7,000 pounds or so. And the thing is, a lot of the weight is lower because of the battery pack. So a lot of the rigidity is from the bottom up. So that comes with a lot of unique challenges. But basically, let me talk about the differences between the R1S and the R1T. First, let me start off with what's the same. So everything in the front two seats and the front trunk, exactly the same as the R1T. That's down, well, in my specific instance, I got the black mountain finished with the black, what do they call it? The black ashwood, I believe. And of course you have your storage under the seats. You have your cup holders right over here. You have your armrest that opens with the two USB-C ports. Sorry about the mess, but right now Rivian does not have the dash cam functionality built in yet. So I do have a dash cam hooked up to a hub and routed over there. So hopefully they can do that. And essentially, everything right to the B pillar is pretty much the same. Now, we get to the interesting stuff. You'll notice the door is very large. And the reason for that, there's no gear tunnel now, right? With the door being bigger and longer, one thing that we've had to adjust to is how much force is required to close the door, or also where to push the door so it's less effort required. I've found that you can actually do it right over here. It closes a lot quicker. And for R1T owners, no scraped knees. Just kidding, but not really. I actually totally did that. I totally scraped my knees on the gear tunnel because the door cut was a lot more drastic. So the opening actually would be right about here where my foot is. And obviously here, the step sill is a lot bigger. And this is really good for third row access. because you can actually step here and then hop into the third row. Another difference with the R1T versus the R1S, this bench does not lift up anymore. In the R1T, there was storage. Another thing over here, this doesn't flip up. This is a fixed in place armrest. There's no extra storage. In the R1T, you got a little button here. You could flip it up and have storage for things. And the way I have the rear bench right now, this like kind of very upright position that you see here, this is more or less what things were in the R1T. Obviously there was less cabin space because you had the bed. So you're sitting a little bit more upright. And what's nice about this R1S is, being an SUV, you can use this lever to lean or fold the seats flat. Now, I have to figure out how to do this with the phone, but essentially the functionality of the rear is a lot better in the R1S than the R1T. In terms of like other differences, obviously we have the third row. So I'm going to go ahead and click this button right over here. That is your ease of access. You press the one button, it slides forward. So unlike other gas competitors or like a Honda Odyssey or Sienna, this does not come up. It's stuck on the rails. And getting into the third row, not as bad as one may think. So you can actually just take a step here and then hopping back, and you'll see there's actually plenty of legroom under the seat. Right now, this seat is all the way back. It does not have to be. You can adjust it at any which point on the rail stops over there. You see little holes. And there's actually room for your feet under. Sorry, my car's kind of a mess right now, but there's definitely room. Then with the trunk, you have the split fold gate. And the other thing that I was really noticing is inside the R1S, the drive modes are very much similar to the R1T, but there is one thing to note, like the suspension, I'm still trying to figure out what the best or most comfortable configuration is. As some of my viewers know and have followed, I had the 20-inch all-terrains in the R1T, so it was a little bit louder, a little bit rougher, but the R1T suspension handled it really nicely. And the thing is, a lot of the changes came with software updates in terms of suspension calibration and all that stuff. I think the R1S has had less time on the road, so they have to figure out, I guess, more proper damping. It's not that it's bad, but under certain settings, like if I were in conserve and soft and low height or lowest height, it would take a little bit too long for the truck to settle. And I've been finding that with the road wheels, all-purpose and stiff are kind of the sweet spot for myself. I like firmer ride. I like a less bouncy ride, and it's plenty compliant. And the thing with the seats, again, similar to, actually exactly the same as my R1T. The one thing to note, the side bolstering is not really too aggressive in the Rivian. So I do want to make this perfectly clear, since one of the biggest comparisons that people make are to a Tesla. A Tesla does have a little bit more aggressive bolstering, so it'll hug you a little bit more. This is more of like a cruiser, more like a lounge positioning versus being in like a racing bucket or something like that. And rightfully so. It's a family SUV, so you get to see everything on the road. And overall, the truck, like the R1S, is pretty similar to the R1T in that regard. The biggest thing is really driving dynamics. It feels tighter when it drives, and that's due to the shorter wheelbase And like I think it would be really cool if they incorporate four-wheel steer one day, but overall, super tight. And the other thing about this truck versus R1T, there's significantly less wind buffeting, and for good reason. The cabin is just that much longer than the R1T. And of course you have that giant rear glass roof. It's a single piece of glass panoramic roof that actually frees up a ton of headroom. And another difference is the under tray of the trunk. It is less room than the R1T because it's just one single tray for the bed. And the rear tailgate, I also must note, supports 500 pounds. So that's really designed for you to sit on, which is why it has like the carpeting on it, and it has like the spotlight so you could see the floor. It's really for you to lounge. And the interior cabin appointments, honestly, the design material choices of Rivian, very stylish. A lot of like different textures, a lot of different, like brakes and stuff. It's always been really good with Rivian, and really, like, I haven't had any issues in terms of the way things look. Are there any like parts improvements versus my early build R1T? Honestly, no, it's pretty much the same. I think they locked in design. The one thing to note on the door panels, you'll see that the Meridian sound system, they have an extra speaker up here and one down on the bottom. And the placement of the sound system is quite different. The sub is in the back now, on the right side of the vehicle, with the air compressor being on the left. The wattage is a little bit higher because it's a bigger cabin, bigger sound stage. Other than that, like, the truck has been really good. In terms of build quality, I haven't really had too many, actually, I didn't have too many complaints on my R1T. I really, outside of the tonneau cover not working once, I really didn't have anything. After that, it actually worked brilliantly. A lot of people, they talk about like devil horns on their R1S. Kind of don't have that. If you look at this, the build quality has been really solid. Look over here. Sorry, my little dog thing there. Like, they have the sub, as I was mentioning here, and then there's an under tray here. So this is what I was talking about, the carpeting. As well. Truthfully, I'm probably not using them. The one thing to note though is in earlier videos, it shows there are 4 of these things. The default is 2, and these come off by sliding this up in various positions, pop it open, and then it can detach. Getting into the third row, the accoutrements of the third row. So over here, they have storage over here for like and you have a cup holder. One of the complaints of the R1T, there weren't enough cup holders, but you have that right over here, and you have vents right over here as well for the third row passenger. And that's that.